better because that's how I practiced it. So let's see, just thanks for everyone for being here. I know you're a very civically engaged, active group, so you might have been here anyway, but just the fact that you're out here on a Thursday night in this setting is really great. And just, I feel like Watertown, we're so lucky to have very, very engaged community, and also for you know, the church for hosting us and for the elected officials who are here. And I just have such an appreciation for our school committee members who are serving right now. I just have gotten a much better education about it, even though I thought I knew a decent amount before. So I really appreciate all of you who are current elected officials and especially school committee members. So my name is Lisa Capoccia. I am a progressive candidate. Just like Rachel said, I think most of us are. And I have a unique set of experiences that I think really lend themselves to the school committee. I'm also endorsed by the Watertown Educators Association and also the union that represents the custodians, the clerical staff, and the food service workers, and several city councilors, Gardner, Bays, Palumba, and Gannon. And just that's a reflection of some of my values. So when people have asked me, I have a daughter who's a freshman, and when people have asked me along the way what I think about Watertown schools just as a parent, there's a few different things I talk about. One of them is that just her experience and our experience as a family, and I also just forgot to thank my family, but my family's been fantastic, and friends and folks who have helped with this campaign also. But as a family, my daughter's had a fantastic experience. Like, I couldn't ask for anything better. Living, you know, being able to walk to the Lowell. She's gone through 3 schools. She's a freshman at the high school now. And the fact that we live in a small, kind of tight-knit community, I think really adds a value that other districts might not have. So that's been fantastic. But I also say that it's likely that my experience is partially so great because I'm a white person who has privilege, and that this is a school district, just like any other school district, is an institution that is designed to be responsive to people with backgrounds similar to mine. And I don't think that's unique to Watertown. I think that's a product of our national culture, and racism and bias appear everywhere, but I do think that as a white person, part of my experience being so positive and my daughter's experience being so positive, that's a factor. And Watertown, just like other candidates, you know, we all celebrate its diversity and think that's one of the things we love about it. And we also have disparities in our education outcomes that I'm concerned about, and I want to make sure we address. So that's an area where if people ask me what do I think about the schools, I say, you know, on the one hand it's this, and on the other hand we have a lot of work to do. And also, one thing that's great about Watertown as a school district is that it is small, so I think it can be very nimble and it can be responsive, and we saw that during the pandemic. I was really pleased with the decision-making around student and staff safety, the top of the line testing protocols that we did, consulting with community members who were experts. So those are all really wonderful things. And so one of the reasons I'm running is because I'm just very concerned about making sure that we address disparities, and I think that we can do that. And a second reason is I think my experience is a good match. Just where I'm at right now feels like a good combination. So just a little bit about me. I am a school social worker. I work as a school social worker at a middle school in Newton, and am around students and staff and families and looking at mental health and special education all day. I have, as I mentioned, a daughter who has been through elementary, middle, and now she's entering the high school, so I've had experience with those different parts of our school district as well as after school, the extended day program. And before I started working in education, I worked in public health for almost 2 decades, and there I did a lot of work in community collaborations, working on evidence-based practices, research to practice, program evaluations, and project management. So I have kind of a different range of experiences that I think could lend themselves to being a school committee member. So the areas of focus for me, I think that one of the interesting things about school committee work is you're responsible and obligated to be fiscally responsible and looking at all aspects of school operation. And so I'm interested in all of it, but the areas that really I'm drawn to the most are equity and diversity, as I said, making sure we're supporting staff, and also making sure we're addressing student mental health needs because of the mental health crisis in our youth. So for equity and diversity, you've heard a little bit about that tonight. There's a lot on my website about it, but we have disparities, and that's, students who are in groups that are historically marginalized have worse outcomes compared to students who are white or the general population. And so that is not an acceptable status. And if we don't really take intentional, proactive, persistent steps to reverse that, we're just gonna keep having that problem. And that's what we've done. Watertown as a district has taken some steps over the last several years to start to work in this area. And from my perspective, it's all great. It's been sort of incremental and sort of initiatives. And although we've had language that's given the impression that it's a unified, holistic effort, I think there's a lot of pieces along the way so far that would say it's not quite that yet. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm interested in running, is to really help the leadership at all levels see that vision and have it really be unified. In terms of staff support, I think that all of the awesome developments that we've been hearing about recently through this election, through school committee meetings, all of the buildings, all of the new programs, potentially adding universal pre-K, if we don't have really solid staffing in the classroom in terms of the number of staff and how staff feel supported, then I don't think we can be as successful with some of those extras as we want to be. And so staff support is very important to me. We have a staffing crisis in the United States. Like, there was just on the news this morning, they were just talking about bus drivers in Framingham, I think it was, and they're organizing parent carpools. And I think we need to look at, funding has gone down relative to GDP and relative to state and local funding over the last 20 years. And teacher pay has also gone down relative to inflation. So I think if we really want to look at long-term education, security, and the foundation of that, we want to make sure our teachers are paid well. We want to make sure we have enough teachers, because when teachers are stressed out, when there are holes in the system, that directly translates into students and their outcomes. And so when we see outcomes that we don't like in MCAS or in iReady or in any other, or in discipline, that's related to how well our teachers are supported. To me, they're one and the same. And for student mental health, we have a youth mental health crisis in the country, and it's no different in Watertown. Our education system does provide social emotional learning, and it also has staff that are mental health staff in the buildings. I don't know enough yet to say if it's adequate or not. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is done every 2 years, will be presented on November 8th, which is the day after the election. And Wayside, Youth and Communities Family Network, presents that. They've done that for many, many years. So I encourage people to go to that. But the data, I've seen a little bit of it from the most recent report, which is similar to past reports, which is just that high percentages of middle school and high school students are struggling with anxiety, with depression, with suicidality, with maybe not feeling safe. And it also hits different groups who are marginalized disproportionately. So there's all these different indicators that say, we are so proud of our buildings, and I'm very excited about the buildings. Although my daughter's not gonna probably, I don't know, Leanne, what do you think? We'll see if our kids get up. That's okay. The modulars are fine, but I want us to be as proud about our work reversing equity as we are about the building. We can be. We don't have to accept that this is just the norm and that these inequities happen, and that's just we just can't accept that. Like, we're not going to change it if we don't really start to change it. So those are some of my thoughts. There's probably a bunch of stuff I skipped over, but those are my experiences. I'm very, whatever happens with this election, this has been a great experience, and I'll continue to work. I guess one other thing I forgot to mention is that over the past 10 years and more, I've been involved in a lot of community efforts in Watertown. So when my daughter entered school, some of that work shifted towards supporting schools, volunteering, organizing parent education sessions. I worked with Great Wayside to do some of that. We had parent education sessions at the middle school. I worked on the wellness committee. I've been on several hiring committees for different positions at the district. And then I've also been involved in just community life in Watertown, volunteering with Wayside, speaking out about the social service resource specialist, and other areas. So that's just something that I will do whether I'm on the school committee or not, but I definitely, of course, would love one of your 3 votes and happy to take any questions.
A little less than 5 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
You touched on 2 things.
Yeah.
that I'm kind of curious about.
Sure.
One, you said in terms of Watertown diversity, you said we started, you intimated we're kind of starting in the right direction.
Yes.
Expound upon that as to where you see the improvement could be made. That's the first. And the second, you said equity.
Yeah.
And you sort of, in the same line, you said Watertown's starting to move in a direction of, in terms of addressing equity, like some of the things that we've done. Expound on that as well, where you see the ability to expand on that and to make it better. What's your thought on how you would do that?
So some of the work that's been done so far is Watertown has hired a director of equity and inclusion, and that position started a couple of years ago, and we have a new person. So far seems to be working really well. Watertown has trained its staff around how bias shows up in teaching in classrooms. There's a lot of, Watertown has launched diversity councils, so each elementary school has a group of parents that volunteer, and they bring in students and have speakers and discuss diversity and how it can be improved upon and celebrated within that school setting. So those are some areas, those are some things that are already happening. And there is a lot of work with English language learners that's happening as well. I think some of the areas that could be improved are, just as an example, like when I went to my daughter's graduation from the middle school, there wasn't, 23% of students are Hispanic in Watertown, and there's not any bilingual signage in the buildings that I'm aware of. And anyone can click translate on a newsletter, so that's great, but pretty much I think that there are hiring teachers of color and making sure that we proactively recruit teachers, especially who are Hispanic, considering bilingual education, looking at Waltham and what a model that they might have to address the needs of our English language learner students beyond just having them learn English. So those are some of the examples. And then, I think that making sure we're staffed appropriately, and it's very impactful for me working in Newton, having staff of color in the building, because it helps me identify my own bias, and it's in a completely different way than any training could. So those are some examples. I'm happy to talk with you more too. I've got a lot others, I'm just not thinking of them all right this second, but thank you for that question.
What qualifications will you look for in hiring a teacher?
Right now we have a shortage of teachers, and so I think it's important to start with qualifications that represent excellence, and so making sure that they're educated in a graduate education program, making sure that they have experiences that reflect the diversity of the students that they're serving, making sure they're expert in the topic that they're teaching. I think those things are important. Making sure that they have good people skills, They have to have a sensitivity to students with disabilities and understanding all of the different learning styles that students enter the classroom with. And they have to know their own bias that they have. Those are some things that I think are easy to, some of those things show up on a piece of paper, and some of those things don't. I think it's essential to, really check references and ask about experiences that they've had in past schools. But because there is a shortage of teachers right now, and because it's really impacting how education operates in the schools right now, I think that districts need to think about some of the qualifications that some of the hard qualifications, such as education level or years of experience, and supplement those with training, on-the-job training. And we're doing that right now in my district. I work in Newton, and we have teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are so important. They're called instructional assistants in Watertown, and they support students with learning disabilities. They support the entire building. They don't just support students with learning disabilities, but they are staffed primarily to support those students. And we have a really hard time recruiting them, so we train them on the job, and the qualifications have changed. So I think it varies. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
Thank you so much.